in a faraway corner of the galaxy, where stars shimmered like scattered jewels against the endless darkness, there existed a planet unlike most others. This planet was calm, serene, and strikingly beautiful. Its landscapes were a mix of crystalline forests, softly glowing rivers, and mountains that seemed to hum with energy. The air was fresh, the skies a brilliant shade of blue, and the entire planet thrived in harmony with the life that inhabited it. For the beings who lived their life had always been gentle and predictable. Though delicate, these inhabitants were an intelligent alien civilization, peaceful in nature, who had spent centuries mastering their environment and understanding the intricate balance that kept their world alive. They were highly advanced, yet they never sought conflict. Their society was built on knowledge, cooperation, and the belief that every action, no matter how small, could affect the planet's future. These aliens were not warriors, nor did they have any reason to be. Their technology was sophisticated, but it was used for healing, sustaining, and improving life rather than for fighting. Cities floated above the ground on energy fields, gardens glowed with bioluminescent plants, and every structure seemed to exist in perfect harmony with nature. The aliens themselves were graceful, with features that reflected their environment's lender frames, reflective eyes, and skin that shimmered softly under the sunlight. They communicated in sounds that carried emotion as clearly as words, and they valued wisdom above all else. For generations, their existence had been peaceful, and they felt confident that their world was stable and self-sustaining. Far across the stars, however, there existed another civilization, one that was very different from these gentle beings. These were humans, known among the stars as Death. Humans were feared by many, not because they were cruel, but because they were survivors in ways no other species could match. Their home planet was harsh, filled with deadly storms, extreme temperatures, and creatures that could kill with a single strike. Growing up on such a world demanded ingenuity, toughness, and the ability to adapt to impossible situations. Humans learned to fight, to improvise, and to endure. While other species might crumble under extreme pressure, humans often thrived. Over time, stories of their resilience spread across the galaxy. Other civilizations spoke of Deathworlders with a mix of awe and caution. Some respected them, others feared them. But almost everyone agreed that humans were unpredictable, and that unpredictability often worked to their advantage. Despite this fearsome reputation, humans were not mindless warriors. They were curious, intelligent, and, when needed, compassionate. If a life was in danger, they often acted when others hesitated. This combination of survival instinct, intelligence, and loyalty made them uniquely capable of responding to crises that most species could not. Unlike the alien civilization on the peaceful planet, humans thrived in chaos. They had built ships capable of withstanding harsh environments, weapons and tools designed for extreme situations, and strategies honed over centuries of survival on a planet that tested them at every turn. Across the galaxy, some saw them as a force of destruction, but others recognized that in times of need, humans were the ones who could make impossible things happen. Back on the alien planet, life continued as usual. Children played among the glowing plants. Researchers monitored the planet's delicate energy fields, and citizens pursued arts, sciences, and philosophies that had been developed over millennia. The society was highly organized but gentle in its structure. Leaders were chosen for their wisdom, not power, and decisions were made after careful consideration and consensus. There was a sense of safety and confidence that everything would remain stable. The aliens believed that their careful stewardship of the planet would protect them forever. However, this sense of security, while comforting, also made them unprepared for sudden disaster. Their world was a delicate balance, and they had never faced a situation where that balance could be threatened beyond their ability to control it. What the aliens did not realize was that the galaxy was not always kind, nor was it predictable. Cosmic events occurred that no civilization could foresee, and even the most advanced planets could be thrown into chaos by forces beyond their understanding. While their knowledge was vast, it was limited to what they had experienced. They had never encountered a threat that required immediate intervention from outside their planet, and they had never thought that the calm, protective environment they had nurtured for so long could suddenly turn against them. Meanwhile, far from this serene world, the humans were busy navigating their own challenges. They traveled the stars in ships built to endure extreme conditions, exploring uncharted systems, learning about other civilizations, and testing the limits of survival. Their experiences had taught them to expect the unexpected. While other species might be paralyzed by fear when facing the unknown, humans often found solutions through creativity, courage, and sheer determination. They did not always follow the rules of other civilizations, but this independence made them effective in crises where conventional methods failed. They were adaptable, and this adaptability had saved countless lives over generations. On the alien planet, life continued in blissful ignorance. The citizens marveled at the harmony of their environment, feeling proud of the civilization they had built. They had learned to predict weather patterns, manage energy flows, and maintain the health of their population. But their pride was coupled with vulnerability. Their entire way of life depended on stability and careful control. They had no armies, no defensive fleets, and no experience dealing with widespread disaster. Their world was beautiful, but it was fragile, like a finely tuned instrument that could shatter if handled improperly. Unbeknownst to them, the first signs of trouble had already begun. Small irregularities in the planet's energy flows went unnoticed, and minor fluctuations in the environment were dismissed as natural variations that aliens trusted in their systems and in the knowledge of their ancestors. They assumed that the galaxy beyond their skies was distant and mostly irrelevant to their survival. And yet, the seeds of future crisis were already taking root. Nature, as they knew, could be unpredictable, and cosmic forces beyond their control were slowly moving toward them. The stage was set for an extraordinary chain of events, a civilization that had never fought, a planet that had never faced real danger, and a people who trusted in their calm world were about to confront challenges unlike any they had ever imagined. On the other hand, humans, the Deathworlders, prepared to respond to signals of distress, their instincts and experiences making them the perfect candidates for action when disaster arrived. The contrast between the peaceful aliens and the hardened humans set the scene for a story of survival, resilience, and unexpected alliances. As the sun set on the alien planet, casting long shimmering shadows across its crystalline forests, the inhabitants remained unaware of the coming storm. They lived in the comfort of routine, surrounded by beauty, knowledge, and harmony. Yet, the universe had other plans. Forces beyond comprehension were beginning to stir, slowly but surely disrupting the delicate equilibrium of their world. The aliens, with all their wisdom and knowledge, were about to learn that peace and intelligence alone were not enough to protect them from cosmic danger. At the same time, humans, far across the void of space, were unknowingly preparing for a mission that would test everything they knew about survival, courage, and moral duty. The Deathworlders would soon become the unlikely heroes in a story that spanned galaxies, proving once again that in times of crisis, adaptability and courage often outweigh tradition and control. The calm before the storm was ending, and the threads of fate were drawing two very different civilizations together in ways neither could have predicted. By the time the aliens began to sense the instability creeping into their world, it was already too late to rely solely on their own abilities. They would need help from those who thrived in danger, those who had turned survival into an art form, those who were feared and respected across the stars. In that moment, the galaxy's most unlikely allies were about to become a lifeline. Humans, the Deathworlders, with all their unpredictability, toughness, and resilience, were unknowingly being called into a role that would define their place in the universe. Thus, the background of this extraordinary story was set: a peaceful civilization on the brink of disaster, a galaxy filled with dangers, and a species hardened by survival but guided by curiosity and courage, ready to answer a cry for help that no one else could manage. The calm, serene beginning masked the storm to come, and the first chapter in this tale of courage, ingenuity, and interstellar alliance had quietly begun. Life on the alien planet had always followed a rhythm of balance and harmony, but slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, that rhythm began to falter. The air, once crisp and clean, carried a faint, unfamiliar heaviness. The rivers, which had always flowed with luminous clarity, began to show streaks of dark sediment that no one could explain. The forests, which glowed softly at night with a gentle pulse of bioluminescent flora, began to shiver under strange currents of energy, as if warning the inhabitants of a danger approaching from beyond their understanding. The citizens noticed these changes, but they were subtle, almost dismissible. They assumed it was a temporary anomaly or a minor shift in their ecosystem, a challenge their society was well prepared to handle. Yet these were only the first signs of a crisis that would grow rapidly, overwhelming even their advanced understanding of science and environmental control. The first tangible signs of trouble came when several small settlements reported sudden illness among their populations. The symptoms were unusual, a combination of fatigue, mild disorientation, and brief, sharp pains. Local doctors, highly skilled in their healing arts, initially thought these were isolated cases caused by minor environmental stress. However, within days, reports multiplied, and it became clear that the problem was not localized. The illnesses spread faster than expected, and the traditional treatments that had always been effective were only partially helping. Panic began to stir quietly among the citizens. Although they were intelligent and logical, the speed and unpredictability of the sickness left them unprepared. At the same time, the planet itself began to show signs of instability. The energy conduits that ran beneath their cities, responsible for regulating climate, powering infrastructure, and sustaining the delicate balance of the ecosystem, began to fluctuate. Sometimes the power surged unexpectedly, causing minor damage, and sometimes it dropped entirely, leaving entire sections of cities in darkness. The floating gardens and suspended walkways, normally stable and serene, quivered with sudden energy shifts. Scientists and engineers worked tirelessly to diagnose the cause, but their systems, designed for predictable fluctuations, struggled to process the magnitude of the anomalies. As the planet's natural stability faltered, the citizens faced a growing sense of helplessness. The leaders of the civilization, wise and experienced, convened urgent councils to address the problem. They consulted historical records, ancient energy maps, and environmental models, but nothing in their history or archives explained the sudden deterioration. For generations, they had maintained control over the delicate balance of life on their planet. But this time, the challenge was unprecedented. Panic began to creep into discussions, though they tried to mask it with calm reasoning. The uncertainty was new and frightening. No one could predict how long the instability would last, how severe it would become, or whether their sophisticated systems could recover in time to prevent disaster. As days passed, the situation worsened. Toxic storms, never before recorded on the planet, began to form in localized regions. These storms carried corrosive winds and sharp electrical discharges, capable of damaging even the most resilient structures. Inhabitants were forced to stay indoors for longer periods, disrupting daily life and causing stress to the population. Entire sections of the floating cities were evacuated, and emergency shelters were activated. Though these were designed for temporary discomfort rather than long-term habitation, the alien civilization was facing a level of environmental disaster they had never imagined, and it became clear that their own resources and knowledge might not be enough to save them. The citizens began to recognize that the problem was not just environmental. Food production became inconsistent as the glowing plants in their gardens struggled to survive under changing energy fields. Rivers and water sources began to carry toxins, threatening both agriculture and drinking water. The natural harmony that had sustained the population for centuries was unraveling, and even their advanced medical knowledge could not fully counter the effects of the planetary disruption. Anxiety grew, and for the first time in their history, the alien society began to confront the terrifying possibility that their civilization could fail entirely. With traditional solutions failing, the leaders faced a difficult decision. They had relied on their own knowledge and abilities for generations, but now they realized that external assistance was necessary. The council debated contacting neighboring civilizations within their sector. However, political constraints and bureaucratic delays made it clear that help would not arrive in time. Even their closest allies were bound by formalities, hesitant to risk intervention without full authorization. That aliens could not afford to wait for approval or follow standard protocols. Time was running out, and the planet's stability was deteriorating faster than any calculations could predict. It was in this context of mounting desperation that the aliens made the unprecedented choice to broadcast a galactic SOS, unlike standard communication, which was limited to their sector. This signal was designed to reach beyond normal diplomatic boundaries. It was a message of urgency, pleading for immediate assistance from anyone capable of responding to a crisis of planetary scale. The SOS carried detailed information about the instability, including environmental data, population impact, and technological needs. Most importantly, it conveyed the desperation of the civilization, of clear acknowledgement that without swift intervention, their world could collapse. Sending such a signal was an act of humility and courage. It was an admission that, despite their knowledge and technological advancement, they could not solve this problem alone. Meanwhile, far across the galaxy, the signal was received by human explorers. Humans had long been known for their ability to respond effectively to crises, no matter how unpredictable or dangerous. Their home planet had shaped them into problem solvers who thrived under extreme conditions. Unlike the alien civilization, humans were accustomed to chaos, improvisation, and taking decisive action under pressure. They did not hesitate, analyze endlessly, or wait for formal approval. When they received the SOS, their instincts told them that action was required immediately. What other species might have considered too risky or impossible, humans saw as a challenge they were uniquely equipped to handle. The decision to respond was not taken lightly by the Death, but their training, experience, and adaptability made the choice straightforward. They understood the gravity of the situation and the stakes involved. Unlike many civilizations, they were not constrained by bureaucracy or overconfidence in their technology. They relied on their wits, physical resilience, and teamwork to manage situations that seemed hopeless. In the context of the alien crisis, the Deathworlders represented the only viable hope. Their reputation for survival, combat readiness, and rapid problem-solving had reached the far corners of the galaxy, making them the logical choice for responding to a planetary emergency. As they prepared for the journey, the Deathworlders studied the data included in the SOS. They learned about the alien planet's environment, energy systems, and population vulnerabilities. Although their understanding was limited by differences in biology, technology, and communication protocols, they began formulating strategies for intervention. Unlike other species, they did not see the alien world as something to dominate or exploit. They saw it as a challenge to be managed and a civilization to be protected. This mindset set the stage for a collaboration that would combine the aliens' knowledge with human ingenuity, creating a partnership that neither species had anticipated but both would come to rely upon. Back on the alien planet, hope mingled with fear. The citizens knew that by sending the SOS, they had reached out into the unknown. There was no guarantee that anyone would respond, or that help would arrive in time. Yet sending the message itself was empowering. It allowed them to take action in a situation that otherwise felt uncontrollable. They waited anxiously, monitoring the skies and scanning for incoming vessels. Every passing hour intensified the tension. The natural disasters continued to worsen, and the population faced growing uncertainty. The planet's delicate balance seemed to be slipping further from their control, making the anticipation of rescue both urgent and terrifying. As the SOS traveled across light years of space, it reached its destination. The Deathworlders, guided by instinct and intelligence, prepared to act in ways that no other civilization could. The alien population, meanwhile, began to realize the significance of their decision. They understood that help had come from the most unexpected source beings, renowned for surviving the impossible, who approached crises differently than any other civilization they had known. This realization marked a turning point in their story. While danger still loomed, the arrival of potential saviors gave them a sense of purpose and renewed determination. In this period of rising challenge, the alien civilization faced not only environmental disaster but also the emotional weight of uncertainty. Panic, hope, fear, and anticipation coexisted in their hearts. They had spent their entire existence managing systems and life with confidence. Yet now they had to confront forces beyond their control. At the same time, they were learning an important lesson. Sometimes survival requires reaching beyond familiar allies and trusting in those who approach the universe in a completely different way. The decision to send the SOS was both a surrender to necessity and an act of courage, acknowledging that even the most advanced civilizations cannot solve every problem alone. The stage was set for a story of extraordinary collaboration. The alien population, facing imminent disaster, had reached out into the vast unknown of the galaxy. Humans, the Deathworlders, were preparing to respond with their unique combination of ingenuity, bravery, and adaptability. The rising challenge was no longer theoretical, it was a tangible threat that demanded immediate action. As the aliens braced for what was to come, the seeds of an unlikely but powerful alliance were being planted, promising a confrontation with chaos that would test the limits of courage, intellect, and interstellar cooperation. By the end of this phase, the alien civilization understood that the crisis they faced could no longer be managed by knowledge alone. They would need courage, creativity, and help from beings whose perspective was shaped by survival under extreme conditions. Meanwhile, the Deathworlders were already mobilizing, driven by instincts honed over generations of overcoming impossible odds. The story of a planetary disaster and the galaxy's response had truly begun, setting the stage for escalating action, daring solutions, and the intersection of two civilizations unlike any other. In the cosmos. The journey of the Deathworlders toward the alien planet was anything but simple. As soon as their ships left their home systems, the vastness of space became a test of endurance, patience, and skill. Unlike most other species, humans were not intimidated by the dangers that the universe presented. In fact, they thrived in the face of adversity. Yet even for them, this mission would be unlike any they had undertaken before. The distress signal from the alien planet had conveyed urgency, desperation, and the reality of a civilization teetering on the edge of annihilation. Every member of the Deathworlder team knew that failure was not an option, for the stakes were the lives of millions of beings who had never asked for war or conflict, yet were now caught in its shadow. As they navigated the vast emptiness of space, the Deathworlders encountered the first set of obstacles: asteroid storms and rogue debris fields. These were not ordinary asteroid belts. They were remnants of ancient cosmic collisions, with rocks and fragments moving unpredictably, some traveling at speeds that could rip a ship apart in seconds. Maneuvering through these fields required absolute precision, split-second decision-making, and the kind of coordination only a crew trained under the harsh conditions of a Deathworld could achieve. The pilots weaved through the chaos, adjusting trajectories constantly, their eyes scanning readouts and sensors for threats invisible to the untrained eye. Even a minor miscalculation could spell disaster, yet they pressed on, driven by the knowledge that time was slipping away for the alien civilization waiting for them. As the ships advanced, they encountered another challenge: rogue pirate fleets. These bands of marauders were drawn to areas of crisis, seeking profit and exploiting weakness. Normally, the Deathworlders would have engaged them head-on, using superior tactics, weaponry, and raw courage to eliminate the threat. However, this mission demanded subtlety. They could not risk prolonged combat near a planet already on the brink of collapse. Using a combination of stealth maneuvers, electronic countermeasures, and calculated feints, the crew neutralized the pirates' interference, avoiding direct conflict while keeping their mission on track. Each obstacle reinforced the lesson that this journey was not merely a flight across space, it was a test of resilience, strategy, and adaptability. Upon reaching the alien system, the scale of the disaster became immediately apparent. From orbit, the Deathworlders could see cities partially submerged under storm-driven flooding, forests cracked and glowing unnaturally under the strain of environmental stress. and atmospheric disturbances that twisted the sky into chaotic patterns. The energy conduits that powered the cities flickered erratically, creating intermittent blackouts that left portions of the population isolated and vulnerable. The alien scientists had tried to stabilize the situation, but their technology, built for predictable fluctuations and controlled environments, was struggling to cope with the magnitude and speed of the planetary collapse. The Deathworlders understood immediately that this was no ordinary emergency. It was an existential crisis. Landing on the planet was another challenge entirely. The Deathworlders' ships touched down amid turbulence, strong winds, and sporadic electrical storms. The landing zones had to be chosen carefully, balancing accessibility to the largest population centers with safety from environmental hazards. Despite the chaos, the crew executed the landing flawlessly, a testament to their training, experience, and unwavering focus. As the ramp lowered, the team stepped out into a world on the edge of disaster. The air carried the temps of ionized energy and the faint scent of chemical runoff. The ground beneath their feet vibrated with subtle energy fluctuations, evidence of the planet's unstable systems. The scale of the problem was overwhelming, yet every Deathworlder felt a resolute determination to act. The first contact with the alien population revealed both the challenges and opportunities of cooperation. The aliens, though intelligent and technologically advanced, had never faced an emergency of this magnitude. Their initial reactions ranged from awe at the appearance of the humans to fear, confusion, and distrust. Communication was difficult. The aliens' language was melodic, filled with subtle tones that conveyed emotion as much as meaning. The Deathworlders, relying on universal translators and careful observation, worked to establish understanding, slowly building a bridge of trust. Misunderstandings were frequent and often tense, but patience, empathy, and clear demonstrations of capability gradually won the aliens over. As the humans moved through the cities, the full extent of the devastation became clear. The entire neighborhoods had been damaged by sudden storms, and many inhabitants had been displaced. Some were trapped in partially collapsed structures, others stranded in flooded areas. While some suffered from illness exacerbated by environmental toxins, every step presented a decision point: where to prioritize rescue, which systems to stabilize first, and how to allocate limited human resources to save as many lives as possible. Unlike other species, humans were trained to make these decisions under pressure, weighing risk, urgency, and potential impact with remarkable speed and accuracy. Their ability to improvise solutions in real time became crucial as the situation escalated. The most critical moment came when a massive storm, unprecedented in the planet's recorded history, began to form over one of the largest population centers. The storm carried corrosive rain, fierce winds, and electrical discharges that could destroy structures and endanger countless lives. The aliens had no defense capable of withstanding it. Panic rippled through the population as they realized the scale of the impending disaster. The Deathworlders, assessing the situation, immediately deployed protective measures. They set up energy shields, reinforced structures with rapid deployment materials, and coordinated evacuation routes. Every action had to be precise, efficient, and synchronized, for any delay could result in catastrophic loss of life. Simultaneously, they addressed the medical crises that had arisen from both environmental exposure and illness. Temporary medical stations were established, combining human medical techniques with alien technology. Treatments were improvised to suit the unique physiology of the aliens, often requiring creative solutions to deliver care effectively under chaotic conditions. The Deathworlders worked tirelessly, shifting between stabilization of infrastructure and direct care for the population. Exhaustion was constant, yet their determination never faltered. Every life saved reinforced the urgency of their mission and strengthened the fragile trust between the two civilizations. In the midst of these efforts, the humans had to deal with technological incompatibility. The alien energy systems were advanced, but designed under principles entirely different from human engineering. Accessing control panels, rerouting power, and repairing failing conduits required both ingenuity and caution. Mistakes could be fatal, potentially worsening the situation rather than stabilizing it. The Deathworlders' approach combined trial and experimentation with instinctive problem solving. They adapted rapidly, learning the alien systems as they went, and their willingness to experiment under pressure proved essential to preventing further disaster. The escalation of the crisis also brought the Deathworlders face to face with the unpredictability of the planet itself. Certain regions began to fail in ways that defied analysis. Floods that surged without warning, energy spikes that threatened to explode critical infrastructure, and environmental anomalies that could not be predicted. The humans treated each problem as a unique challenge, tackling it with a mix of strategy and improvisation. Their presence, competence, and willingness to act decisively inspired confidence among the aliens, who had been paralyzed by fear and indecision. Gradually, the aliens began assisting, using their knowledge of local systems to support the Deathworlders' interventions. By the time the storm reached its peak, the combined efforts of the humans and willing alien participants had stabilized key areas. Though the situation remained perilous, the The protective measures held just long enough for emergency evacuations and critical repairs. Lives were saved that would have otherwise been lost, and the population began to regain a fragile sense of security. The Deathworlders, though exhausted, continued to push forward, knowing that partial success was better than complete failure, and that every moment counted. The critical moment revealed a key truth. Survival in the face of overwhelming crisis required not just technology or knowledge, but courage, adaptability, and collaboration. The aliens, for all their intelligence and technological advancement, had never faced such immediate multifaceted threats. The humans, shaped by centuries of surviving impossible odds, brought a perspective that complemented and strengthened the aliens' efforts. The combination of human ingenuity, resilience, and determination with the aliens' intimate understanding of their planet created a force capable of countering even the most extreme environmental disasters. As the storm began to subside, the aliens could see that the humans had not come merely as visitors or observers. They were active participants in saving the planet. Trust, which had been fragile at first, solidified in the heat of crisis. The Deathworlders' decisiveness and effectiveness demonstrated to the alien population that help could arrive from unexpected sources, and that survival sometimes required reliance on those whose methods were unfamiliar but effective. The experience forged a bond, an unspoken recognition that the fates of these two civilizations were now intertwined, at least for the duration of the crisis. The escalation of events during this phase of the story transformed a planetary emergency into a narrative of heroism, ingenuity, and interspecies cooperation. The aliens, facing unprecedented environmental collapse, learned that intelligence alone was insufficient. Action under pressure, adaptability, and courage were equally vital. The humans, the Deathworlders, reinforced their reputation as resilient problem solvers capable of thriving where others would fail. The crisis, while terrifying, also revealed the capacity for extraordinary collaboration, the power of determination, and the value of stepping into chaos to create order. The immediate threats had been contained, lives had been saved, and trust had been established between the two civilizations. The critical moment had passed, but the aftermath of the storm, the damage to infrastructure, and the lingering environmental instability ensured that the Deathworlders' work was far from over. Yet in this crucible of chaos, the foundations for resolution had been laid. The aliens began to see that, even in their darkest hour, they were not alone. And the humans understood that their intervention had made a tangible difference. The most dangerous escalation had been confronted, yet the consequences of the disaster remained to be addressed. The collaboration between humans and aliens had proven possible, effective, and necessary. It was a lesson in courage, resourcefulness, and the power of acting decisively when circumstances demanded. From this moment forward, both species would be forced to work together to stabilize the planet completely, restore its balance, and ensure that the lives of millions could continue in safety. After the most violent storms had passed, the planet lay battered but not defeated. The alien cities, once pristine and gleaming, bore scars from the disaster. Cracks in the energy conduits, sections of buildings partially collapsed, and glowing gardens stripped of their delicate luminescence. The rivers, once clear and alive, carried sediment and chemicals from erosion and storm damage. The alien population, though relieved that the worst had passed, remained tense and anxious. They had survived the initial catastrophe, but the planet's delicate balance was still precarious. The Deathworlders, who had already demonstrated their ability to act decisively in a crisis, now faced the daunting task of restoring stability to a world teetering on the edge of chaos. The first step was to repair the failing energy systems. The alien cities relied on a network of conduits that distributed power evenly across floating structures, medical facilities, and environmental control systems. Damage to these conduits during the storms had caused blackouts and intermittent failures, leaving areas vulnerable to further disasters. The Deathworlders worked alongside alien engineers, combining their practical experience with the locals' theoretical knowledge. Unlike humans, the aliens had rarely faced a situation where improvisation was necessary. Their systems were designed for control, not chaos. The humans, accustomed to survival in unpredictable conditions, adapted quickly. They rerouted power through temporary channels, constructed makeshift stabilization units, and monitored fluctuations in real time. Their approach was hands-on, fast, and precise, often requiring them to enter dangerous zones while storms still lingered or energy surges threatened to damage equipment. Simultaneously, the medical teams worked tirelessly to treat the population. Illnesses that had spread during the crisis were still present, and some individuals suffered from injuries sustained in collapsing buildings or exposure to the corrosive rain. The Deathworlders' medical approach was unconventional for the aliens, blending advanced technology with rapid response techniques developed on human Deathworld. Field hospitals were set up in secure areas, and mobile units moved through damaged neighborhoods to reach those unable to travel. The treatment process required constant communication with alien doctors, who monitored unique biological differences and provided guidance. Over time, the combination of human and alien methods proved highly effective, restoring health to the population and preventing a secondary wave of fatalities. At the same time, attention was given to the planet's environmental systems. The storms had caused instability in local weather patterns, disrupted natural energy flows, and damaged ecosystems critical to the survival of the alien population. The Deathworlders, though not native to this planet, brought a fresh perspective. They observed patterns of instability and devised strategies to restore balance, often using portable devices that mimicked natural processes to stabilize energy fields or regulate water flow. The aliens, initially skeptical of these unfamiliar methods, began to see their effectiveness and participated actively, learning new ways to manage their planet in the process. What had been a moment of desperation became an opportunity for education, experimentation, and cross-species collaboration, restoring the energy network and stabilizing. The environment was not simply a technical challenge, it required coordination, communication, and leadership. The Deathworlders divided tasks among their teams, assigning specialized groups to power, medical, and environmental stabilization. They coordinated closely with alien authorities, ensuring that resources were allocated efficiently and that interventions were prioritized according to urgency and potential impact. The aliens observed human strategies and gradually adopted some of the decision-making methods. For example, rapid assessment teams were deployed to evaluate damage, identify critical areas, and report back in method the aliens had never used before but quickly recognized as highly effective. One of the most critical aspects of resolution was addressing the psychological state of the population. After days of crisis, panic, and uncertainty, many aliens were frightened and disoriented. The Deathworlders understood that rebuilding trust and confidence was as important as repairing physical systems. Teams moved among the people, offering guidance, reassurance, and demonstrations of effective problem-solving. Seeing decisive action restored hope and motivated the aliens to participate actively in rebuilding efforts. Communities began to organize themselves around human-led initiatives, coordinating cleanup, repairs, and environmental monitoring. The act of shared effort strengthened bonds and created a sense of unity that had been temporarily lost during the chaos of the disaster. During this phase, there were moments of improvisation and innovation that highlighted the unique abilities of the Death. In one district, a major water conduit had collapsed, threatening both agriculture and drinking water supplies. Alien engineers had calculated that repairs would take days, possibly weeks, but the humans devised a temporary bypass using materials scavenged from nearby damaged areas. Within hours, water flow was partially restored, preventing further disruption and buying valuable time for permanent repairs. In another area, energy surges threatened a hospital, and human teams deployed rapid stabilization fields while simultaneously training alien engineers in the method, ensuring future crises could be handled more effectively. These instances were repeated across multiple sectors, demonstrating that action and courage could overcome obstacles even when traditional methods failed. Asterisk. The process of resolution was not without its setbacks. Some areas experienced secondary storms, some systems failed unexpectedly, and human teams had to enter hazardous zones to prevent further damage. Each challenge tested the patience, skill, and coordination of the Deathworlders, but their resilience was unwavering. They had faced extreme conditions on their own homeworld, and the experience had instilled a capacity to remain calm, focused, and effective under pressure. By contrast, the aliens learned to adapt quickly, accepting help when necessary and observing new methods of problem-solving. Over time, the collaboration became seamless, with humans and aliens complementing each other's strengths and compensating for weaknesses. One of the key elements of resolution was long-term sustainability. The Deathworlders understood that stabilizing the planet temporarily was not enough. Without systemic changes and preventative measures, the planet could face similar disasters in the future. Together with the alien authorities, they implemented new monitoring systems, emergency protocols, and environmental safeguards. Energy networks were reinforced, medical facilities were upgraded with hybrid technology, and early warning systems for storms and environmental fluctuations were installed. The aliens, who had previously relied solely on predictability and control, began to incorporate adaptive measures, creating resilience where before there had been vulnerability. By the time the Deathworlders began to reduce their on-site presence, the planet's core systems had been stabilized, power grids were operational, medical crises were under control, and environmental systems were returning to normalcy. That aliens could begin rebuilding homes, restoring gardens, and resuming daily life. Yet, the impact of the crisis had been transformative. Citizens who had once relied entirely on technology and knowledge for safety now appreciated the value of adaptability, courage, and cooperation. They had witnessed firsthand the importance of decisive action and learned to respect a species whose methods were different but effective. The Deathworlders themselves experienced a profound sense of accomplishment. Their intervention had not only saved lives but had strengthened an entire civilization. They had demonstrated the power of experience, ingenuity, and courage in the face of overwhelming odds. While the mission had been dangerous and exhausting, the results affirmed their role as capable responders to crises across the galaxy. They had turned chaos into order, fear into confidence, and vulnerability into resilience. Their presence had created lasting impact beyond immediate survival. Throughout this period, the aliens and humans developed mutual understanding and respect. Trust had been established in the heat of crisis, reinforced by successful interventions, and cemented by shared experiences. The aliens had learned to value decisiveness, adaptability, and bold action, while the humans had gained insight into advanced technology, environmental management, and cooperative problem-solving on a planetary scale. This exchange of knowledge and culture strengthened both civilizations, creating a bond that would endure long after the immediate crisis had passed. By the end of this phase, the resolution was clear. The planet was no longer on the brink of destruction. Systems were operational, the population was stable, and the threat of immediate disaster had been removed. Yet, the lessons extended beyond physical repair. The aliens had gained confidence in their ability to work under pressure, in partnership with others, and in improvising solutions when conventional methods failed. That humans had demonstrated the power of resilience, courage, and collaboration, solidifying their reputation as a species capable of rising to any challenge. As the final measures of stabilization were completed, there was a sense of quiet triumph. The storm had passed, but the planet and its inhabitants had been forever changed. That citizens could now rebuild their homes and lives with the knowledge that help could arrive from unexpected places. And the humans had forged connections that would resonate across the galaxy. The resolution was both technical and emotional. Systems repaired, lives saved, and trust established between two very different civilizations. The stage was now set for reflection, adaptation, and the beginning of a new era. Both the aliens and the Deathworlders had faced challenges that tested their abilities, courage, and spirit. The crisis had revealed vulnerabilities, showcased strengths, and taught invaluable lessons. The resolution phase marked not an end, but a turning point, a moment when hope replaced despair, action replaced paralysis, and collaboration replaced isolation. From this point forward, both species could look forward with a greater understanding of resilience, survival, and the power of working together under the most extraordinary circumstances. After the immediate crisis had been managed and the planet's systems stabilized, the alien civilization and the Deathworlders entered a period of reflection and aftermath. For the aliens, the devastation they had faced was still fresh in their minds. The streets bore the marks of destruction, homes had been damaged, and entire neighborhoods had been reshaped by the storms. Yet, alongside the physical scars, there was a profound shift in their perspective. They had survived because they were willing to seek help, and because the Deathworlders, a species they had once only heard about in stories and whispers of fear, had answered their call. This realization sparked a mixture of gratitude, awe, and curiosity. For generations, they had relied on intelligence, knowledge, and careful planning to navigate their world. Now, they understood that resilience and courage, qualities they had admired but never fully appreciated, that could come from the most unexpected sources. The first days after the crisis were filled with both practical and emotional recovery. The aliens focused on rebuilding damaged structures, restoring energy networks, and cleaning streets contaminated by storms. Gardens that had been stripped bare began to be replanted, and rivers that had carried debris were cleared and treated to return them to their former clarity. Yet alongside these physical efforts, there was an unspoken need for emotional restoration. Families and communities had faced life-threatening circumstances, and fear had been a constant companion during the storm and its aftermath. Citizens gathered to support each other, sharing stories, offering comfort, and helping neighbors who had suffered most. The Deathworlders participated in these efforts, not as rulers or overseers, but as collaborators, reinforcing the value of solidarity and shared responsibility. As the aliens worked to restore their world, they began to see how the intervention had changed them. They had witnessed firsthand the effectiveness of decisive action in moments of extreme danger. They had seen how flexibility and adaptability, hallmarks of the human experience, could solve problems that logic alone could not. Alien engineers who had once relied entirely on predictive models now incorporated contingency planning and improvisation into their designs. City leaders recognized the importance of having protocols for rapid response and emergency adaptation. Even ordinary citizens, who had once been passive observers of their world's systems, became more aware of their role in maintaining balance and supporting one another during crises. The disaster had left a lasting impression, transforming not only their infrastructure but also their mindset. The Deathworlders in turn experienced reflection of their own. Having faced challenges on their own harsh homeworlds, they were accustomed to adversity. Yet this mission had expanded their understanding of cooperation, patience, and trust. They had worked alongside a civilization that had never faced such extreme chaos, and had adapted to a style of problem-solving unfamiliar to them. They learned to combine their instinctive, roper response approach with the methodical, highly calculated methods of the aliens. This partnership demonstrated that even a species shaped by survival in the harshest conditions could benefit from new perspectives and strategies. The humans left the planet with renewed confidence in their abilities, knowing that their unique combination of courage, adaptability, and ingenuity had made a profound difference. The aftermath of the crisis also revealed the long-term value of interspecies collaboration. The aliens and humans had shared knowledge, tools, and strategies that would continue to benefit both civilizations. Alien engineers now had access to techniques for stabilizing systems under unpredictable conditions. Medical teams had exchanged knowledge about physiology, treatment methods, and emergency care that would improve responses to future crises. Communication and coordination protocols developed during the mission created a foundation for future collaborations, enabling rapid problem-solving across cultural and technological differences. These lessons would endure, ensuring that both species were better prepared for whatever challenges might arise next. One of the most significant outcomes of this period was the deepening of trust and respect between the two civilizations. The aliens had initially approached the humans with caution, uncertain of their intentions and wary of their reputation. However, the humans had demonstrated not only capability but also integrity, empathy, and a genuine desire to help. Actions, more than words, had earned the aliens' trust. Likewise, the Deathworlders had come to understand the value of patience, careful planning, and reliance on local expertise. Through shared hardship, both civilizations recognized that their differences were not weaknesses but strengths, complementing each other in ways that made successful intervention possible. The psychological impact of the collaboration was profound. The aliens, who had once viewed humans as unpredictable and somewhat intimidating, now regarded them as protectors and allies. Stories of the humans' daring maneuvers, inventive solutions, and fearless actions spread throughout the population, inspiring future generations. Children and young scholars were fascinated by tales of how the Deathworlders had navigated storms, stabilized systems, and treated the sick in the midst of chaos. These narratives became part of the cultural memory, emphasizing not just survival but also the values of courage, decisiveness, and collaboration. The Deathworlders, too, carried lessons forward. They had witnessed how a civilization that excelled in knowledge and technology could be vulnerable in situations that demanded adaptability and quick thinking. This insight reinforced the importance of continuous learning, flexibility, and the ability to work with others who approach problems differently. The mission highlighted that true effectiveness comes not just from individual skill or strength but from combining diverse abilities and perspectives in pursuit of a common goal. In the weeks following the crisis, infrastructure reconstruction continued at a rapid pace. Temporary energy systems were replaced with permanent solutions, and new redundancies were built to prevent similar failures in the future. Medical facilities were expanded and upgraded with hybrid technology, blending human rapid response equipment with alien innovations. Urban planning was revised to include contingency zones, safe shelters, and enhanced monitoring systems. The aliens had not only survived the disaster, they had used it as an opportunity to strengthen their society, making it more resilient and better prepared for future challenges. The alien leadership, reflecting on the crisis, recognized the broader implications of their experience. They understood that no civilization, no matter how advanced, could remain isolated from the unpredictable forces of the galaxy. The lessons of humility, preparedness, and collaboration were clear. By reaching beyond their usual alliances and contacting the humans, they had secured a lifeline that had saved countless lives. They began to integrate these lessons into governance, education, and societal norms, emphasizing the importance of adaptability, courage, and a willingness to accept help when needed. For the mission had lasting implications as well. Their successful intervention reinforced the reputation of humans across the galaxy as capable and reliable responders to crises. Other civilizations, witnessing the outcome, gained a renewed understanding of the value humans could provide, not merely as warriors, but as problem solvers, collaborators, and protectors. The experience strengthened interstellar relations, opening doors for future partnerships, trade, and cooperative defense. The Deathworlders' actions demonstrated that courage, resourcefulness, and empathy could create trust even across the vast differences of species, culture, and technology. As recovery progressed, the aliens and humans shared stories and reflections. They exchanged insights into their respective worlds, discussing survival strategies, environmental management, and approaches to complex challenges. The conversations fostered mutual understanding, breaking down assumptions and stereotypes that had existed before the crisis. The aliens realized that humans' reputation as Deathworlders was based on survival under extreme conditions, not cruelty or recklessness. The humans, in turn, gained a deeper appreciation for the sophistication, intelligence, and dedication of a civilization that had thrived in harmony for millennia. Ultimately, the aftermath of the crisis was more than just physical rebuilding. It was a period of transformation for both species. The aliens emerged with enhanced resilience, improved infrastructure, and new strategies for survival. while the Deathworlders left with expanded understanding, strengthened reputation, and a sense of fulfillment from having made a tangible difference. The partnership forged in crisis became a lasting symbol of what could be achieved when courage, skill, and cooperation meet necessity. As the Deathworlders prepared to leave, there was a quiet ceremony of gratitude. The alien population expressed deep appreciation for the humans' intervention, acknowledging that without their courage and ingenuity, much of their civilization might have been lost. The gesture was simple but profound, reflecting the bonds formed during shared hardship. That humans, in turn, expressed respect for the aliens' knowledge, resilience, and willingness to learn from a species so different from themselves. The exchange was more than ceremonial. It represented mutual recognition, a promise of future cooperation, and the understanding that both civilizations had grown stronger through this experience. In the end, the planet was no longer just a place of survival. It had become a testament to resilience, adaptability, and interstellar solidarity. The aliens, who had once faced annihilation, now looked to the future with renewed hope. They understood that survival required more than knowledge. It required courage, decisive action, and the ability to work with others who brought different strengths to the table. The Deathworlders, in turn, carried with them the lessons of this mission, demonstrating to the galaxy that humanity's reputation as survivors was matched by their capacity for empathy, collaboration, and heroic intervention. The aftermath, while marked by recovery, also sparked reflection. Both civilizations considered how the lessons learned could be applied in the future. The aliens recognized the importance of rapid response planning and interstellar alliances. They integrated these concepts into governance, education, and infrastructure planning. The Deathworlders reflected on the ways collaboration could multiply the impact of their actions, reinforcing the idea that even the most independent and resilient species benefits from cooperation. The shared experience created a blueprint for future missions, highlighting the value of combining strengths, embracing differences, and acting decisively in times of crisis. By the close of this period, the crisis had been transformed into a story of survival, learning, and growth. The planet had been stabilized, the population had regained confidence, and the bond between humans and aliens had been solidified. The lessons of resilience, courage, and collaboration would endure in both societies, influencing generations to come. Where once there had been fear and uncertainty, there was now hope, preparation, and the knowledge that even the most dire circumstances could be overcome when courage, ingenuity, and empathy converge. The aftermath was not merely about surviving a disaster. It was about transforming it into a lasting legacy. The Deathworlders had proven their worth as more than warriors. They were protectors, innovators, and partners capable of bridging worlds. The aliens had learned to expand their understanding, embrace uncertainty, and trust in collaboration. Together, they had created a story that would be remembered across the stars. A story of a civilization saved, a species rising to meet a challenge, and the extraordinary outcomes that occur when courage meets opportunity.